So, here we are back in Blender. This is the scene we've created in the first part. We pulled together all those noodles and created an image sequence from it, which we are now going to use as a hologram in a 3D scene. So let's first create a new scene. Scene new. And now we're in compositing. Let's go to the default and see we need to switch back to the newly created scene. And as you can see here, there is nothing in it because, yeah, it's a new scene, but that's no problem because we don't really need that much. Let's first add a simple plane as a ground, and now let's add a circle. Hit tab to go into edit mode and then E for extrude, and let's go upwards a little, then E again, upwards a little more, then ES, just E and S to extrude in, but just a little bit, then S and extrude in again, S, okay, E, S, and now just a little bit once again, and now E and Z and downwards just a bit, and E and Z and downwards a little more, yeah, and now E and S once again, hit G, Z, put it a little downwards, E and S once again to go inside, and now we can hit Alt M to merge at center. And now we got a neat little model which we are gonna shade smooth. And you see there are some problems with the normals, so hit tab to go into edit mode again, A twice, Control N, and the normals are fixed. Now let's add a subdivision surface modifier. Well, let's put it to 3. 3 is usually pretty good. And yeah, that's our basic model for the projector. Now for the ground. I'm going to edit mode again. Hit S and 5. That's I guess that's a good value, 5. Now we got pretty much ground. Hit 3 to go into the side view and select edge select mode, select this edge here and hit E to extrude, and let's build a very basic backdrop. Now shading of course smooth, and add another subsurf modifier once again at level 3, and you see that it's a bit rounded off, so let's go back into edit mode and fix things by adding a few edge loops. Control R, so, Control R, zack, and here, and Control R, and here. And now we got a problem here, that's the floor cutting into our teleporter or projector, so we need another edge loop here. Control R, go to the middle and go just up there, and now things are clean. Go tab back into object mode, and yeah, here we are. Next thing I want to add is, let's add a few basic materials. Let's start with this guy here. I'm adding a new material, make it rather dark. Oh, I guess even a little darker, but not completely black. And let's add a little bit of mirror. Just like, not very much, and keep everything else like it is. And then let's add another material. So let's call this material, let's call it projector.dark. And here let's add a new material, call it projector.white. Leave it at this gray, but turn the intensity all the way up, and I've also gave it a bit of a mid, like 0.3, so you can even see it when everything else is completely dark. And yeah, a little bit of mirror might be a good idea. So what to do with this material? Well, let's assign it just to the inner parts of the projector. To do this, we go back into edit mode, and now let's select just the faces or vertices that need this material. So hit A to deselect everything, go to a vertex select mode and select just the inner vertex. Now Control plus on the numpad. And yeah, that's it. Now if you hit assign, perfect, right? This is some serious projector, right? And now another thing I added to this material was a very subtle texture. So let's choose a blend. Check the dot, because that's where I want to create a subtle dot in the middle, and use a spherical. And of course let's choose the ramp, and let's create just a very subtle bluish stuff. And now we should have a little bit of blue in the middle of the circle here. And of course I'm overdoing this a little bit for the tutorial, so you can actually see this. In the original one, most of the stuff is a lot more subtle. And yeah, I'm adding a camera and moving the Z rotation should also be 0. Now I'm hitting 0 and Alt F, Shift F to move the camera around, and let's see a very first render. Before we can render, we need to add a world, because the scene is so empty that it doesn't even have a world. So let's add a world. Don't care for the horizon color, I want a little tad bit of environment lighting, let's say 0.2. And yeah, the render size is, I choose 720p, and for the test renders just 50% to save quite a bit of render time. And now we got our first render, and yeah, things are looking quite okay. Now let's add a texture to the outer, to the background, but first I'm still gonna scale it a little bit, S, X, and scale it broader. Oh, haha. Hit A to select everything, now S, X, and make it broader. So fine, oops. So now that this part is finished, let's go head over to create the texture for the floor. So let's first add a new simple material and just turn on mirror, but keep the reflectivity at 0. And now let's add some texture to it. New one, call it tiles, and we're gonna use the texture nodes for this. So let's select textures, use our tiles texture, select use nodes, and now let's set up some floor tiles. Delete this node and add input patterns bricks, and I'm also adding an output viewer node. And first of all, I'm going to turn off the offset, and the squash is okay, the bias could be a little higher, I guess, and the brick width and height should be of course the same, so let's reuse the width, because I guess the tiles will be really big anyways. And now let's have here brick 1, very subtle bluish, and brick 2 also very subtle but a little bit more reddish. Yeah, that's it. And here we got our texture. Of course you need to connect the output of the bricks to the real output. And now when we head over to our textures panel, here's the texture, and let's select of course the color as the influence. But I want a second tiles texture, so the very same. And this one shouldn't influence the color, but the ray mirror by, let's say, 0.15. And in this case I'm selecting RGB to intensity and negative. And now the dark parts should be a lot more reflective than the light parts. So let's head back to the default and see how this is looking. Oh, and you see from the very beginning the tiles are a lot too big. So let's make them smaller, and we need to make them smaller on both of the textures. So let's select mapping, and I'd say 5, 10, 5 should work out. Second tiles texture, and once again 5, 10, 5. And here we got our tiles. They are reflecting, as you can see here. And on the bottom, yeah, the size is correct, and the lighter parts are not as reflective as the dark parts. Now, next thing is to add those chords here, and then we are already finished with all the texturing stuff. So let's hit 7 to go into. So modeling and texturing should be finished by then. And now let's go into top view by hitting numpad 7, and let's shift A, add curve Bezier. Let's move it up here, and this will be our chord. It's currently unfortunately a little bit directly on the floor. Let's move it up a little bit, like here to the middle or so. And for the chord we need something around our Bezier curve, and that's a so-called taper object, I mean bevel. And let's hit Shift A, curve circle, hit G and Z to put it under our floor. And now when we select this here and you choose the Bezier circle as a taper object, no, I mean bevel object, here we got our circle, our, let's say it's a chord, but we need to scale it down a little, of course, so it's not as big anymore. And I guess this size here is okay for the chords. We can give it a material too, add a new material, make it diffuse, make it really dark, and drastically reduce the specular, also the hardness on the specular, and turn down the intensity quite a bit on the diffuse. So that's our gummy-like thing, and let's make it a set. Now let's move it, let's say here, rotate it a little bit, hit E, go to edit mode, tab to go to edit mode, hit E to extrude, and let's make it a little longer. So here we got our first chord, Shift D to duplicate it, rotate it a little bit, rotate it a little bit more, hit tab to go into edit mode, change the position of all these a little bit, and maybe this one here a little bit up there, just a little bit of difference in them when they are lying around. And let's add a third one, rotate it once again, hit E to go into edit mode, change a bit of the stuff. I guess the position here, this one is okay, rotate it a little so it's coming more up here. I'm also rotating this here, so, and moving this here up a little. And now when we're looking through the camera, we got a few chords. Maybe let's put them more up here, so let's hit all of them, rotate around the 3D cursor, and now when we rotate them, they keep being perfectly aligned and we can set them as we want. And I guess the best thing is to set them while in the camera view. So, are set. And now we can set them as we wish. Maybe here. Yeah, that's okay. Now, next thing we're gonna add are a few end caps for all those chords. So let's Shift A, add mesh cylinder, scale it down a bit, R, Y 90 to rotate it on the Y axis, go chapter 7, of course shading smooth, and let's add a material, somewhat grayish, dark gray, bit more specularity, and still not that strong in the diffuse section, shading is smooth, and here scale it down once again. And now let's see how this is looking when we are moving it up along this Z-axis or GZ and upwards here. And now let's rotate this guy around this median point. And I guess we can scale it down And from what I think, it's still a little too big, so let's scale it in once again a little more and put it around here. Yeah, I guess the chords are just a little too. Yeah, they're floating. So let's select all the chords, Bezier curve, Bezier curve, Bezier curve, G, set, and put them down until they're on the floor. And then I'm going into edit mode, go to 1, and try to select just the tips. Ah, that's perfect from 7, select here. First select everything, then here the tip. Go back to 1 and move it up a little bit. So. Then do this again with this one, edit mode, select a tip. Move it up a little bit. So, and with the last one, tip, 1, G, set, upwards just a little bit, and now we should have our chords. And I see it's still up too high. No, it's down. Wow, we got a lighting here. Seems like there's gonna be some hard rain in a few seconds or minutes. But still no problem for this tutorial, because this is the future, and in the future there is no more lighting storms. Or someone like this. So let's hit 0, and I guess, yeah, if we render now, we should see some basic chords. I mean, this is just I went over that very fast, and it's just a neat little gimmick. And of course the algorithm is set to obviously render the chords last, because it seems like the chords will take the longest time for rendering. And yeah, I guess one could be a little more diligently with these parts, but not for now. Let's do all the fun stuff now, because everything, texturing, modeling, materials, everything is finished. Now for the cool part you've all been waiting about, or for. So let's add a plane, rotate it by 90 degrees, and move it up a little bit so that it's just up here. And of course, let's move the camera back a little by Shift F, camera fly, and then G, and upwards. Now we can see everything. Let's back a little once again. And now let's add a material to it. Keep the intensity completely up, no specularity. We want to emit a little bit of light later on, so let's set the emit value to 10, and let's turn on transparency and turn it all down to 0. And let's call this material.holo. Then let's add a texture, call it texture.holo, because it's for the hologram, and select image or movie. Now under image select open, and I'm selecting just the first image of the entire animation. And then under source I click image sequence, and now we can specify the frame range, and this image sequence got 500 frames, so select 500 and auto refresh. And now when we scrub through the timeline, we should see the animation, because at the beginning it's nothing there, and then here I'm coming up. But if got those weird sections here, even around my hair, and that's because I need to check pre-multiply. And yeah, now it should look almost perfect. Under image mapping, select extension clip. So everything outside of the image gets cut off. And now let's see how the material is looking like, or let's select both. And under influence, you see that there is just color, but our material is currently completely transparent. as we see here. So we need to set the texture in a way that it's also selecting, also changing the transparency, and we got it here now. Yeah, but now it's a little overbright due to the high emit value we have selected. So let's also select the under influence emit, and yeah, now it should be perfect. Let's do a little test render, and yeah, here we got our hologram, and here we got also a little bit of reflection, but the floor is currently reflecting also the tiles that's going upwards, and that's not wanted. So let's select the floor, and here go to, in the mirror, select the max distance of 5. So we still got the entire hologram, which is probably nearly 2 blender units high, or how high is the hologram? Let's see. Yeah, dimensions of 2 blender units, and the light is, so when you're looking from the camera, the light hits here at the floor and goes up to the hologram part and stuff. So I guess we need a little more than 2, and I'm just choosing 5, so we got enough of the hologram but not the background part. And now when we're rendering, the things should look fine, so no reflections here, but the hologram is reflecting a little and the floor, other stuff are reflecting too. Pretty cool. Now yeah, I'm also going down a little to get a cooler view of the hologram and to see a little bit more of the reflection. Yeah, here we go. Now the next thing is the animation I've set up. The entire animation will be 500 frames, so select this in the end section for the animation, and now we got here our 500 frames of animation, and let's add a really cool cinematic camera motion now. And the first thing I want to do is yeah, I've selected the camera. Now I'm shift selecting the plane here for the hologram and Control P, and now I set parent to object. Now when I rotate the plane around the Z-axis, the camera is following. Wow, that's cool, right? So let's go to frame 500, insert a keyframe for the rotation, and let's go to the very first frame, to the first frame, and rotate it a little bit. Oh, I guess that should be enough. And now rotation. And now when I'm moving this, scrubbing through the timeline, we see the animation. Pretty cool. Now next thing I wanna do is I want to add some movement to the camera, but I want it to stay focused to a certain location of the image, so to a certain part of the hologram. So I'm gonna do this by tracking it to an empty. So I'm adding an empty. Yeah, empty, call it empty punct dot track to. Move it up a little bit so it's right here. Now I'm gonna select the camera, and here at a constraint track to, and as a target I'm selecting the empty I've just selected, and oops, what has happened? We need to find an axis of our camera that's tracking to the empty end. Now let's have a look at how our camera is looking in the local space, and you see that the z-axis that's pointing upwards is actually the pointing to the opposite direction as the camera is looking. So if we are selecting for 2 minus z, we are perfectly pointing to the track part, but if we are moving the track empty now, nothing is happening, and that's why, because we're still missing something. We still missing the up axis, because looking again at our camera, but in local view, we see that the up axis is the y-axis, and it's currently set to Z, so it's currently set to the backside, and of course this can't work. So let's select Y, and now when we're moving the empty, G set, woo, camera is following suit, or woo, pretty cool of course. And so let's go to frame 500 and select a position that's perfect, like this here, somewhat lining up at the top of the hologram. And now, when we are rotating this, and let's set a keyframe for the location of the camera at the last frame. Location. Then we are going to the first frame and hitting G set for the camera and moving it up. See, it's still tracking to the empty here, and the rotation of the hologram is copied, and we're going pretty much up to get a really cool view from the beginning. So now, of course I'm overdoing compared to the final result you've already seen. Well, but let's select keyframe for the location, and now let's check out the animation. Wow! Perfect Hollywood style cinematic camera movement, all in Blender with full control over almost everything. And here, this little thing we need to fix. Let's go into edit mode and scale it on the x-axis a little bit more. Dang. Go back to object mode, and now we got a pretty cool camera movement. Perfect, right? So, now for one of the more important parts of the setup, the light. Let's add a simple lamp, a spot lamp, no, a point lamp. Hit G set and go up somewhere where the head might be. And let's select a pretty color that just works. And yeah, for all of everything, let's start with ray shadow, and now let's see how a render will be looking. And yeah, there is some lighting, but there's a very weird shadow up here, and that's from the plane. Actually, I see that we are on frame 500, so we don't see it a lot anymore. So let's check it out on this frame, and you see here's the sky, and it's exactly where the plane is exactly where the point lamp is. So we get quite a bit of problems, but yeah, solution is easy. Let's select this layer only for the lamp and move the plane to layer number 2. And down here, so shift select both layers. And now when we render, everything should be looking a lot better, yeah. Perfect. Maybe let's reduce the specularity a little bit on this one. We don't really need this, we want reflections, not specularity. And now let's turn on GLSL shading, because very cool thing. Now that we've got a light, we can actually see our hologram. So let's first in the viewport shading select textured, and now here we already see the lighting. And under display shading, select GLSL, and now we got the actual hologram, and it's even animating, so that's really cool, right? And you see, yeah, it's animating, it's popping up between frame 100 and frame 115, so why not animate the light? So let me go to frame 115, select the light and hit I to keyframe the energy. Then let's go to frame 100, set the energy to 0 and hit I again, and now when we are playing back the animation, sky is popping up and also the light is coming. And I'm gonna add another light, and that will be a spot lamp, and it's currently moving downwards through the plane, so you can see it. See here, down there is the spot shape. So let's hit RX90, no, RX180. And what I'm going to use the spot lamp for is a very subtle effect to connect the hologram with the projector visually by creating a cone-shaped light that's coming out of the projector, and that's really easy to do. Just let's just limit the distance. Let's see how it's one. Yeah, let's check how it's looking when we're increasing the spot shape size. So it should be just around the shoulders. Yeah, I guess that's correct. And let's turn on show cone so you see where we're gonna have the spotlight, and turn on halo. And then when we're rendering, we see that light's actually coming out of the projector, and has this cone shape. And now we see that the hologram is actually coming from the projector. And let's use the image here to select a color by choosing the color picker tool here, and take like this here and turn off specular, and also this layer. This layer only, so we don't need anything. And now, yeah, we got some simple lighting that's connecting the projector with the hologram, but I think I'm gonna choose a darker color, like here from the hair. So let's see again. And yeah, the darker you choose the color, the more subtle the effect is. So let's maybe change the energy to 5 and render again. Yeah, here it is again, but it's still not that great. Maybe if we're choosing yet an even darker color, like here, like so. And check this out. Yeah, the effect becomes more and more subtle, but yeah, this is I guess this is cool, even though you can hardly see it. We need things to be subtle for the final effect. So this is just a very subtle effect to keep the projector connected with the hologram visually. And now let's also animate this. So frame 115 is the end of the animation, so let's keyframe the energy and the blend size, the size of the spot shape, and then go to frame 100, spot shape size of 0 degrees, and also an energy of 0. And now when you play back the animation, a very cool effect. Look here where the things are coming up, and whoa, that will look pretty cool, even though it's subtle in the final animation. So what's left? I guess the only thing that's left is the 5 lights I had added down there, and that's also pretty fast, so let's just do it. So let's go. Add a plane, rotate it by 90 degrees on the x-axis, and I see we should go back to solid mode. Now I'm hitting G, Y, and taking this a little firm up front, then S, scale it down quite a bit, go into a front view and see how big it's already, and we see it's still room for making it a little smaller. And I'm also going to top view and check this out how near it is and put it a little nearer here. And now let's go back to front view and add a couple of modifiers. First an array modifier, set count to 5. And let's keep this relative offset, and yeah, this is perfect. Next a modifier for the shrink wrap. Where is it? Ah, here's shrink wrap. So yeah, as a target I'm using this circle. Now they are bang, shrinked against the circle. To get them back out, we are adding a solidify modifier. So let's add the solidifier, turn the offset to the outside and increase the thickness. And yeah, that's okay. And now let's rotate it around the 3D cursor a little until the middle one is heading up front, and yeah, here it is, and at frame 500 this should be all down there. And now we need to apply all the modifiers, so let's apply from the top to the bottom. Apply the array modifier, then the shrink wrap one, and then the solidify. And now we got 5 boxes perfectly aligned. So these want some materials. So let's head over to edit mode. First select A. Now I'm hitting Control. And I'm trying to select just the vertices of the middle button and add a new material. Then I'm hitting A again and selecting just those guys and those guys. And this one is getting another material, call it, and hit Assign. And let's make it look a little different. So yeah, it has worked. We're gonna change the color later on anyways. A and D. Let's call it second. Doesn't matter. First. And for those guys here, let's control click to grab all those and add a third material. So, and bang, here we are. Moment, hit Assign. So here we are. Now of course all those guys, the first, second and third one, all want their color. So I'm hitting F11 and grab one with the color picker. Right about here. I guess that's a good one. Then I hit this here, select Control C, and now I can paste it to the second one and third one too. Now another thing all three want to have is a high and mid value. I think 5 might be good. Oh, let's turn it down to the mid value down to 3 maybe, so it's not that extreme. So here a mid value of 3, and here also a mid value of 3. And now let's animate the materials. Hit Escape. And let's go to frame, usually where we always are, frame 115. All are set to on. And then let's see, we have 3 steps. So let's divide 115 by 3, that's 5. So let's go to frame 110 and turn off the one on the left and right side. Those are the one with the third material. So let's actually go to frame 111 and hit I. Then let's go to frame 110 and turn it to black and hit I again. And no. Oh, I worked on the end, not on the actual one. So let's right click and delete the keyframe and put this back to the normal value. And let's really go to frame 115 and turn the end back to 500. Ah, stupid mistake. And now we got those guys down here. So let's go to frame 111, hit I, then to frame 110, turn this to black and hit I again. Then the next guys are probably... there must be some small error over here, I guess. Let's see later on what's happening there. Let's first go to frame 106, hit I for those guys, and now to frame 105, turn it down to black, and of course I again. And now to frame 101. That's where the first material is up to. Hit I, and then 100 and I again. No, yeah, I of course, but first black and then I. And I see we got a few errors here with the materials, but I guess not. That won't really matter. It's just a matter of not properly selecting everything from the beginning. And yeah, that's pretty much it, except for two things. First, let's turn on indirect lighting, and I'll probably choose approximate for the gamma ring. Hit F12 to render and see whether the parts down here, the lights, will really cast any light. And let's see. Rendering times just suck. But yeah, looks like those are actually casting light. So yeah, this is perfect and we're nearly finished. Now for the last bit of animation, we need to reverse everything we have just done. And that's very easy. Let me hit escape and go to animation. And you see, go to scene, and let's see, we got quite a bit of stuff going on between frame 100 and frame 115. I mean, we're not just animating the material, we are animating a lot more. But we can very easily mirror all this to the back, and that's, we got here the spot, the point, and all the materials on the plane working. So let's hit A, hit B to box select, and select those guys up here, those keyframes. Now hit Shift D to duplicate them, move them over a little. Now hit S and -1. This will mirror them. Now let's hit G again and get the last one to line up with the frame number 500, so we can see this down here whether they are lining up correctly. So frame 500 is okay. I see we need to zoom in a little bit. And now frame 500, or choose one frame before, or I guess we can actually go a little further and choose a few other frames, but let's choose frame 500. So it's turning out, everything is turning out at frame 500. So let's check back the default and go back to textured view. And now let's watch the entire animation in nearly real time. So camera movement is going down pretty nicely, and guy comes up with all the light, and here guy turns out perfect, and the number of materials, we can see this in solid mode. So yeah, the animation is perfect, and if we render now, everything will be looking cool, even though it might really take a while until you have rendered this beast. But yeah, thanks for watching. This was the second part of my hologram tutorial. I hope you learned a little bit. This is Gottfried Karl Heinrich Hofmann from Blender Diplom, and happy blending!